there's obviously a lot of ways you can measure success, and whether that's individually or collectively. There's various accolades and all that kind of stuff. But I think that the thing that I was probably the happiest about was that we had a very specific process and plan for the last year that we thought was very realistic with the people we had. And if we were fortunate enough to be healthy and not have outside things we couldn't control impact that, we felt like we really had a reason to believe that the season we had was what was possible. And so I've been doing this a long time, and running's running, and there's no magic. I mean, you have a pretty objective understanding of where you stand, the people you have, and what's there. So, there wasn't any surprises. I think from our standpoint, like the guys and myself and other coaches, it was just a matter of having the pieces, come together and not have things get in your way that you can't control. So I think again kind of goes back to you have to have perspective on everything. And our division's got 300 teams. It's got 23 conferences. We've been many times at the national championships, and when you come out of the RMAC, you can be a really good team and yet be in the shadows of a lot of people. You can be a very good runner and be in the shadows of a lot of good people. So the challenge you have, it has been this way ever since I've been here, is that for the people in this team to see where they're at versus the country, not what people see them as just in the conference or whatever. And that probably sounds a little different in most sports, but the reality is when you're like, there's years I remember one year we were 11th at nationals and 4th in our conference, or we were 12th at nationals and 5th in the conference. You have to understand who you're up against, not and that you would be winning 90% of the you literally would be, because you beat the conference champ. Like this year, the national championships, there's only 2 conferences that had anybody in front of it, ours in the GLIAC and in the NSIC Augustana. So, when you look at it in the big picture, to me, it's always been about you're up against the best people. Whenever we've competed past that point, there's nothing unknown. You've already run against the best people there are, so it's not like you're coming out of an area where maybe teams are beating people, but they're not really as good. And so, you just have to keep it in perspective, and you can't really do anything about the people you compete against. You just look and say, listen, if we're fortunate enough that we can fire on all cylinders, that's probably good enough to beat these people on a given day. And so that conference meet, it didn't go perfect. We had a situation at the very beginning, probably about 250 meters into the race. There was a really tight turn. They never had run a race on that course. So I think that with the talent level and the depth, there was a lot of the beginning was probably just a bit too dense, and we were on the inside where our box was, and when they came into the curve, there was a pileup, and Evan Grafe, who's one of our better guys, he got we had 3 guys go down, in fact, but he got pretty much ran over, and the whole thing, and we ended up popping up at the back end and then having to work his way back a bit. But it did a number, it was not a good situation. So thankfully Gavin Harden, who had been super consistent for us all year, it came through with a great race, and we ended up being our number 5 guy that day and was able to secure the spot for us. But that's a good example, and we had a similar situation happen at nationals, but it's a good example of why we're always talking about how every man counts. I tell every freshman kid that comes in the program, I say, look, I don't know what your story is going to be here. I don't know how good you're going to be. I can't tell you that. But if you really stick to the things we're doing here and commit yourself, then you'll have an opportunity. And it's important for you to understand that, like, you even though you may, like, a guy who's a freshman might not even be, he's a red shirt, but someday he's going to be that guy for us. And it's easy to talk about, like, in Afi Zaru or something. Obviously, he's going to be most known for just his results, but to be really good as a team, you have to have a lot of guys. Afi's like a Ferrari, and you got to have a bunch of Honda Accords. Like, I mean, but they got to be durable, consistent, reliable, and bring it, and that to be good. And that's what a lot of our team is. So when Grafe had that happen, it was actually a really good lesson, because it really fortified to the team how good they were. When you lose a guy who's an All-American indoor, he's All-American the mile, and is really good, and he didn't even factor, and you still finished up where we were, then they're like, yeah, we're for real. Like, we can, this is what we believe we're capable of. And so to say, yeah, it was a good day for sure, and it helped, kind of push us forward. But it was really where we thought we would be at, and it was kind of like, well, okay, that's done, let's move on. So, yeah, regionals, which we went into, fortunately, in a position where, due to our result prior to that conference and the way that large system works, we knew we were fine. I mean, we needed to have a good day, but there wasn't the pressure on us to have to have an A+ day. We needed to have a good day. And CCU had actually sat some guys at conference, and by design, they were which is fine. But I knew they were. I mean, they were ranked 6th in the country at the time, I think, and very, very good. They had 3 really, really good guys up front, all American caliber guys. And so this will probably sound funny, but I actually, going into meet, the focus wasn't trying to beat them. The focus was, we need to do good, and we know we're good, and we're going to battle against everybody else 2 weeks later. So when we ended up a few points back of them, it actually was a relief to me, because even though I knew we were that good and they knew we were good, in the eyes of people around it kept the spotlight off us, and that was just fine, like, going into the national meet. And so it worked out well, and we had some really good things happen at regionals. It wasn't perfect, but it got done what we needed. And both conference and regionals was kind of cool. We had 4 men make all conference and 4 men make all region, and they were different. So bowling was all conference, and then Grafe made all region. So 5 different guys, and that's pretty cool. That's hard to do. So that says a lot about them. But then, nationals, a lot of things went into that. And 5 years ago, Coach Kobotsky and myself were down there, actually 6 years ago, at a track meet, the NCAA D2 national meet, and it was about an hour away from there. And so we had an off day, and we drove over to go look at this course, and went out, and I was like, yeah, this is the real deal. I mean, this is going to be tough. It's not what you think of when somebody thinks, oh, you're going to Florida to run on a golf course. Like, you're thinking of some pristine, thing they built, and this isn't the case. This is cut out of a forest. It's extremely hilly. It's in a hilly part of Florida, which probably sounds funny, but it is. And so, and extremely humid, like where it was. And then there's so much forestry and vegetation around it, it just increases that when the sun comes out. The dew point was really high. So we knew this, 2 things. One, it was going to be a really tough course. And number 2, we knew the conditions would be hard, and that would exponentiate the how hard the course was, especially as the race went on, the 10K. And so we prepared the guys with some things. Some of it is stuff that, like, I had done with a guy I worked with who competed internationally. In the last, the World Championships were extremely hot in Doha, Qatar, and then also last summer in Japan, here in the marathon. So having some real life understanding and knowledge of like what we're up against with the humidity and heat. We did some stuff that I felt like no matter what couldn't hurt us, and at the very least I think psychologically prepared us to go compete. And we had worked with Andy Zabuti and Nate Morris from down at the Hibble Center, and they were great to donate their time and resources and really sit down with the guys and explain like, hey, here's what you have to be ready for, here's how your body's going to respond. So we spent, every Monday, those guys would go into a room and jack that temperature up as high as we could and sweat to death, and get them used to that, being uncomfortable, and then also adapting to that every week, like that it wasn't as bad. We would do recovery runs where 3 days a week they would go straight into a hot tub for 30-40 minutes. And I mean, I'm not talking about like a comfortable hot tub. I'm talking about like uncomfortable, where they've already run 70 minutes and then you're getting right in there. So just dealing with, again, the stress of that, like on the body, and then getting more and more used to it. And then we also, I had bought these vests, these ice vests that used from a construction company supply outfit that we got a real good deal on, $25 a pop, and but they were neon green, so that was fine. Nobody's gonna run over us. So we early in the season we went to a meet in Wisconsin, and the reason we went there was it's a really hard course, and it's very similar to the Florida course. In terrain, and also just the hills, and also the race was being run at 11:30 in the morning. So I knew, with it being in September, there was a good chance that would be really hot, and I felt like that would be our first test for these guys to go and see, like, hey, this is what it's going to be like. And so we had used the vests there as well, warming up, and I think and they all felt like, yeah, this is, man, I feel better, just anything to keep you feeling good. And so I think some things like that, as well as just those guys were so committed to the process that they believed that, yeah, we've done the work, but we're really prepared compared to anybody here. We're as prepared as you can be to take on this course and these conditions coming from Colorado. One thing I will say that I'd like to note is that it is obviously really challenging coming from this climate to go compete there. But our conference did set the all-time collegiate running record for having 5 teams finish in the top 10 of a national championship from the same conference in the same state. It's never been done before. So that says a lot about everybody that came from the RMAC that competed. The individual that qualified, he was All-American too. So the conference, even though there was some tough guys, had some hard races, including one of our guys, but they still, like, you would come from anywhere in the country and you realize these guys came from Colorado and went down there and still did that. I mean, that goes back to talking about the conference, how tough it is. So the way we approach our season is like there's the season and there's the playoffs, and the playoffs is like Nationals 1, Nationals 2, and Nationals 3, and that's how we do it. I don't know. I think it's a different animal. I mean, obviously the overall intention is individually is you just continue to get better, and that's no different than what got us here, whether it was any other year we've competed. The biggest difference, I think, though, with this squad compared to previous teams at nationals and whatnot, besides just you arriving in the starting line completely healthy and ready to go, is that this group has been through more than anybody. I mean, all the teams I've ever had, because it was literally 2 full years since the last time we had a national championship in our sport. Now there has been track, obviously we've competed and that's great, and we were able to just keep things rolling. But back when everything, I was in Birmingham, Alabama. Actually Zaru was with me with the track team, indoor nationals, and we were literally there at the arena. Well, we were actually at the hotel, but it was at the arena that day when they said, okay, we're shutting everything down and sending you back. And we were just like, what are you talking about? This is crazy. And that was the beginning. And I got back here. We flew back on a Friday. Like the next day we had to come back. We weren't scheduled to get back till Sunday. And I met with all of our men. And I said, look, I don't know what's going on. I have no idea what's happening. But like, we're a good team. We've have high expectations. You don't compete the National League by accident. I mean, these guys understand what we're doing here. I said, so I don't know what's going to happen, but we've got to be really intentional about what we're doing, in the days and weeks ahead and how we approach things. And so I'm not, there's a lot of things those guys did in that time frame, and a lot of these guys that raced, you just saw, most people have no idea about, and they got better and better and better and better and better. And then so, everywhere in the country had different challenges and stuff. But in our sport, it was like, look, man, they already knew what it took to be good. I mean, we weren't already running at national meets because they like you. I mean, you have to get there by merit. And those guys just kept the hammer down, and then what they saw this season was finally having the opportunity as a unit to show what they already could have probably done a year ago or close to that, and that's the way it goes. But having Mark Simmons and we got all kinds. Mark Simmons was student teaching while he was it's not easy. There's times I was literally, there was a workout we were doing a week before. I was following him in the dark in my Jeep with hazards on, because we were getting the workout done. Same thing, Gavin and Will. I'd meet with those guys about 5:30, 6 a.m. Most of the teams at 7 or whatever we had to do. You had all kinds of stuff. Guys in grad school, different things. It was just where we were. But these guys were ready to handle all that. It wasn't a problem. A really mature group. So yeah, I think those are the biggest things. But like man for man, it wasn't just like Affy Zaru, Evan Grafe, Matt Schramm. Brandon Bowling, Gavin Harden, Will Young. But each of those guys, they're kind of extension of the rest of the team. Every single guy we have is a contributor in a lot of ways. And they know that, a lot of those guys weren't rock stars. Mark Simmons, Matt Schramm, those guys, along with Affy, competed in 3 national championships. They weren't, when they came in, they weren't all-state. They weren't big guys at all. They had to put in the time, and most every guy on the team looks at those guys and says, I can do that. Those guys weren't any better than me when they came here. And so that's kind of what it's built around. We're going to miss those guys a lot, obviously, because they've been here, but we're fortunate we have a pretty good stable behind that's going to be there too, with some young guys. But that being said, for me as a coach, it was very gratifying to see these men get their opportunity, to show, hey, this is what we can do, and they've waited 2 years for it. So it was cool, and it was tough. The national meet, even Brandon Bowling had a really tough last 400 or 500 meters. He was completely gutted and literally crawled at the finish line. And Gavin, again came through with a great race and closed the door for us. And I think when it was said and done, it was just this is there's nothing more we could do. Matt Schramm, I ended up with Schramm in the ER for 4 hours after the race. Those guys were throttled. It was there was nothing left. And so the race plan itself they were really very disciplined. In fact, at 5K we were in 19th place. There's 262 guys that started the race, and if you look at they have the breakdown of the splits and the places and whatnot. And from the 5K mark to the finish, there's only there's 5 guys in the race that either ran very, very close to even or negative splits, and we had 4 of them. And that was by design. I mean, like, that's how we raced, and we knew that that was our best shot, and it was going to take a lot of discipline to let attrition take its toll and then be able to really bring it the last 3K, and they did it. And so, we felt that where they finished was what we thought was possible. But then again, you have to understand that there's several other good teams that also think the same thing. And we've certainly been there where we've been on the outside looking in, or you're a few points short or whatever. And for that day, I think that, like, the thing that was probably most gratifying was just seeing them happy, but B, like knowing, like, man, this is it. Like, there's nothing more that could be done. So you walk away and you say, well, it's like I told the men before the race. I said, I don't need points or a place to tell me if we've done good or not. Like, I know by how we compete, and we were fortunate enough to be fifth, and that was it. So yeah, that's the story. But yeah, we'll see what the future holds. But the show goes on, running's running, and nothing really changes. Just keep on doing what we're doing. Everybody else is doing the same. I can promise you that. Like, nobody's sitting at home going, oh yeah, I don't know, I guess this is fine. Like, every team in the country is like chomping at the bit. And when they see, like, a team like ours, compete, and they say, okay, those guys did it, we can do that too. That's it. So yeah, it's probably in terms of a coach, like, when you look there's a lot of ways to evaluate, how something goes. In our sport, we don't have, like, a win-loss record. Like, you play basketball and you win a game, or you lose a game, you move on to the next one. Like, we compete in a big meet. There's 34 teams in the national championships, and that's literally like playing 33 other teams in the same game, like, one time. So, if you look at, like, that, you think, wow, like, over the course of a year or a career of a guy on a good team, their winning percentage is pretty dang good. Like, if it was another sport, people would be like, wow, that's good, but we don't have that. So our sport, you see, like, oh, there's one team that wins, or one individual who wins. But yet there's, like, a lot of really good teams, or a lot of really good individuals, a lot of great performances happening out there that sometimes get lost in that, translation, because people don't always know what's going on. They just see like an athlete, right? Obviously, he's a high-profile guy, and so that's kind of what people see it, but they don't know that there's a lot of races going on within the race, But those guys are. I couldn't ask anything more out of them, and I was just fortunate to be the guy I got to work with them at this point in their career, and things clicked, and it was their time. Yeah. Coach K could tell you this, Coach Kobotsky, same thing on the women's side, is that our main focus is always the process, and regardless of the personnel we have, it doesn't really change. Like, you know what it takes to be successful in this sport, all the little things that add up. Like I always say, it's like putting pennies and nickels and dimes in a savings account. It doesn't look real flashy on a day-to-day basis, but if you're expecting to be good, a year from now, you've got to be good today. I mean, it doesn't just magically happen that you show up and you're better than people. Like, you have to be doing things better than some people who are maybe more talented than you, so that when you have the opportunity to race them, you may come out better because you're more prepared, or you better utilize your talents or your knowledge. You apply your fitness to the course or the conditions a little better. So that process doesn't really stop. And whether they're a freshman on the team right now, or a guy who's going to be a fifth-year senior next year or whatever, everybody wants to be part of something that's successful, right? I mean, so the standard doesn't really change. It's just a matter of people staying healthy and getting better, and understanding the big picture process. And I think one thing about this sport that's a little different is it takes a lot of patience. Like, if you're an 18-year-old kid coming in and you're trying to kind of find your way, it's a lot of paying your dues. I mean, because you're not gonna, like in the men's side, they're running 10K races. Well, high school, they only run 5K. Most sports don't change like that. Like soccer, you have the same number of players on the field. Baseball, the game doesn't change. The basketball court doesn't change. Like those things, even in track, like the 100 doesn't change, the long jump doesn't change. Now some things, the throwing implement weights change, but or the hurdle heights possibly. But that being said, it's a pretty massive jump to go from being an 18-year-old kid running 5K races against high school people to running 10 kilometers against 22 and 23-year-old guys with several thousand miles of training under their belt. So you have to find people that really love the process, like they're really willing to pay their dues for a long period of time before they may even get a shot. Because if it's a good team, and we've had pretty good teams for a long time, like competitive teams, that you're going to have to work. It's not going to be given to travel even or do anything. Like you've got to be able to, if you're going to be there, you got to be good to do it. You're going to have to do something. So nothing really changes. I mean, like I said, sometimes some years you're just fortunate. 2 years ago we had a really good team, and one of our team captains got hurt halfway through the season, and the guys we had stepped up and did a good job, but we definitely, that was a big hole to fill, just from an experience standpoint, even more so than even where we were athletically. The guys that we had did a wonderful job, but the focus even changed a little bit halfway through the season, where we had to even get to be at the national meet. Like we couldn't just, okay, we're going to be there and we're going to focus on the national meet. We had our back was against the wall, and those guys had to bring it to get there. So every year is a little different with your personnel, because it depends on their experience, what you've got to do, the road you've got to take to get there. And like I said, this year for us, I think it was, we knew where we were, we knew it was possible, and so we even set up this season in a way that those top guys really rarely raced until we did our home meet. We went to Wisconsin, and that was it, and then ready for the big three at the end. And so that was where all the emotional energy went and everything. But I think anybody that, if you have a fairly competitive team, the team understands the expectations, and you don't have to really preach that very much because it's so embedded in the culture. But then also, once you're a team you're perennially like in the top 15, 20 in the country, the margins are pretty slim between different teams on a given day. So it really does come down to how consistent you can be, and over the long period of time. And generally when a runner gets older, they become more consistent. Like a younger guy may pop off a really good workout or good race here and there, but to be able to do really well regardless of what's happening. I always tell them, you're getting somewhere when your average day used to be your best day. So life may be throwing you some curveballs, or there's some other things going on, but you can still show up and do battle and contribute to the team, and you can count on a guy that's going to come through for you. So you don't have to have an A+ every time, but you need to have A's, and you can't have A minuses. You got to have some. You got to have some things in there where people have expectations, and you're not going to fluctuate a lot in performance. So we'll see what the future holds. I don't know. No different than what we're already doing. Just do the best you can. But we were, you got guys like Kathy Zaru, Evan Grafe, Gavin Harden, Will Young. We returned 3 captains. That's a pretty good start. And we had some guys who redshirted that were really, really solid. And if they were on other teams, they would be competing this season, and that's okay. So that's where we're at. Sure, absolutely. We have been very fortunate. I've had some really wonderful people helping out over the years, and starting off with Jeff Wilson. He's been with us 9 years, was a graduate assistant for me originally, and then he stayed as an assistant while starting his own business, and he's worked with our strength and conditioning for 9 years. And obviously as a runner himself, he's very dialed into our guys, and more importantly, he's just a good influence on him. He's a great guy to have around. Nick Schutz, who's been a volunteer assistant with us for 4 years. And again, another guy that has a lot of just life wisdom, which you appreciate always just simply having good people around, right? You can't ever go wrong with having enough good people. and Willie Moore, who was a alumni of our own program, and so he's very committed because he grew through the program and he believes in the program, and he's taken on a bigger role as an assistant this year, and especially with recruiting and helping in a lot of other capacities. But those guys especially, when you have a team of 24 or 25 guys, and they range from 18 to 23 or so, very different places in life, it's really crucial that you have great people around them at different levels, so that nobody really gets lost in the cracks, so to speak, or whatever. And I think that in sports, obviously the people up the top get the headlines, but it takes a lot of people doing things behind the scenes, just the littlest things when we travel, just covering the basis. Everything we do, there's so many details that go on that most people have no idea about. One story I like to share that's really cool was with the whole team. It talks about how everybody has value. We were at our conference meet up in Golden, and it had rained a bit, and the course was really damp that morning, but we had kind of contemplated what spike links to wear. And when I got to the course that day, I went and had walked through a lot of it, and the women were getting ready to compete. And I told the men, I said, I really think that we should bump up an eighth from where we were, from quarters to 3/8. And the guys were going to warm up, so I said, put all your spikes down, put all your shoes down. The freshmen who were there to support the team, they each grabbed a pair and went to work, taking the spikes out, putting them in. So the guys who were getting ready to race weren't having to worry about that, and could go warm up and come back and have them all lined up, and they're ready to go. And they put them on, and when they were doing strides, they're like, Coach, I'm really glad we have these 3/8 in. And it's little things like that people don't know about. But even those guys, all those freshmen that were part of that was a big deal. But there's so many things just in races, and when we need people to be at certain places to give really specific feedback, not only to the guys but to me, counting places, talking about spreads, time between certain groups and where we are and where we want to be. Just so many things, though, that happen in the course of the season, odds and ends, needing to pick up groceries, needing to do last-minute things, changing stuff on the fly, and guys like, yeah, I got it, no worries, Coach, you focus on this. Or just even the leadership within the team. Our captains this year, we had Evan Grafe, Afwerki Zaru, and Will Young. And and also guys like Matt Stram and Mark Simmons have been captains in the past, but they were graduating a semester and also had a lot on their plate with their academic load, grad school, and also student teaching. And so those guys, it shifted to these other guys. We didn't miss a beat, and so a lot of things go on within the course of a team. In order for it to be successful, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that keep things running smoothly. And when you have good leaders and good people, it's a huge difference. As a coach, you're able to focus more on things that are right in front of you as opposed to put out fires, so to speak. And now on the other side of that too, obviously your guys' department, Sarah's done an awesome job for years. She's probably one of the most underrated people in her position, I think, in the business, quite honestly. Just that it means a lot to the student athletes when they have people that actually care about what they're doing. It might not seem like a big deal, but just things that they take pride in, and be like, hey, these people, actually know what we're doing here, and and they're happy for you when you have success. It's pretty cool. So I think that, that being said, along with our training staff, our administration, there's a lot of people that help us do what we do. Whether it's calling Heather at the last minute and saying, hey man, can we do this, or we need to make a change, or is this cool? And she's like right there and says, yeah, sure, do what you think's best. So I just that, and then obviously we're a part of a bigger team too, with the track and field staff, with Ross, our Coach Fellows, and Dylan, and Joel Frazier, Keith Vance, all those guys. We're kind of a team in ourselves, but then we're within an even bigger team that's had a lot of success, and that's pretty exciting to be part of. But then probably the other guy that I've got to mention, because he's the most important, is Kobotsky. And I mean, he's been a part of this program since my second year here. I mean, in some capacity, he came and visited when I was my first year to see if he could come be a GA the second year. And my best friend is his college coach at WashU in St. Louis, and that's how that connection was made. And so he was part of the beginning when we were really trying to cultivate the culture here. And then he saw the first success that we had prior to him being done with his being a grad assistant. And then his wife, he then married, very successful runner in her own right, went on to be a professional for 4 years. So he supported her. Then they came back when David Harmer, who'd been my right hand man for 3 or 4 years, and then we split the program so he could be more effective even with it, and that's why we had a different head coach for men and women, and Corey stepped right back in that role, and we've been rolling ever since. So I'm very fortunate because to be able to coach the way you want, you have to be surrounded by people that allow you to do that. And when I have a great coworker like Corey, we're on the same page with everything, the philosophy, how we coach, what's important to us, how we run the program. We work together on our budget. I mean, everything it's like when you do that with somebody you have a great relationship with, it means the whole world. And so even in our seasons, we were both very fortunate. Entering the year, we felt like we had good teams, and both of us were really able to enjoy that. We had good leadership, good assistant coaches. And so I think for he and I to be able to share that together, going through a season where we both had success in the conference, the region, nationally, individually, team-wise, it was really fun because they're together. They're two teams, but they're really one. The teams feed off each other. There's excitement. They want to see people do good. So all that to say, I think it's important that people understand that, they may see a result, whether it's a team's replace or whether it's somebody like Afwerki Zaru or the guys we had, they're all conference or all region or whatever. That's awesome. It's it's special, and all our guys take pride in those guys doing that. But at the same time, if it wasn't for all those people, then I couldn't do the job I get to do, nor would I enjoy it as much. You have to have people around you that support you and allow you to do things the way you believe they should. And so I'm fortunate to have that. In 15 years here, I've seen a lot of changes through the years, but I've probably more so than most of the colleagues I have at other schools, I've only had 2 athletic directors, Steve Kirkham, who hired me, and Nate Gibson, who was an assistant for him from the day I started here. So Nate and I've worked in the same department as him for 15 seasons. So that continuity also really helps somebody like a coach in my position just to go coach, do what you think you need to do. And we're fortunate to be backed up by those people. So I think that all those people play a huge role. And granted, coaching is my passion, but you can't do that job if you don't have other people that help you do it. So I guess just to say that again, there's a lot of great individual things that you could point out during a season, and a lot of it are the things that happen most people don't know about, whether it's at practice or traveling or just people volunteering to do things that they're not asked to do. And sometimes it goes without saying, you just take it for granted that things get done because it's the right thing to do, instead of you asking, hey, can you take care of this? Hey, can you do that? It's just people that believe in the program, and also stuff like put on home meets, which is a lot of work. And there's so many people that volunteer their time, picking up the course when it's dark, setting up the course, the timing people, you guys, our training staff, all the folks on our team that aren't competing, they're out there working, the track and fields people are out there helping marshals on the course. We have a lot of people that takes just to allow us to do what we do. And they do it because they're not expecting a pat on the back or some make a big deal out of them. But it's important to understand that the public may say, oh, 5th place at the national championships, good for you guys. I'm like, yeah, that's the tip of the iceberg. That's so much stuff that it takes just to even be on that starting line and have a shot. And like I said, myself, and I know Coach Kobotsky would say the same thing, we're really blessed to just be able to do things the way we think should be done and have people that back us up on it. So yeah, that's it, man. It's a good year and thankful for what we got to do.